Hey skiers, I'm Jeff from skiessentials.com.
I'm Bob. How's it going?
Bob, what are you skiing on?
This is a 2023 Nordica Enforcer 104 Unlimited in a 186 with a marker Duke PT16 on it.
So there's a lot going on right there.
That's a lot.
So yeah, we've been skiing them for what, about a week now?
Yeah, a little over a week.
We've had 3 or 4 different people skiing them. Really exciting stuff. It's actually really nice following up from that Glen Plake ski to this ski, because it feels like they're kind of in the same category, but there's definitely some differences between them.
Yeah, totally. You know, I think we both kind of agreed that the Elan was more of a touring specific ski, whereas like in my written portion of the article, I thought that they nailed the Unlimited name of this.
I've been thinking about that over the past 48 hours or so. Like, yeah, less limitations.
Right. You know, we kind of laugh at names when they first come out.
Right.
And like, I don't think I've ever had an experience where the name better lines up with the ski, whereas we first kind of laughed at it.
Right. No, exactly.
So,
I'm glad that we agree on that, and we haven't talked about that yet. So,
right.
Hey, it's good when that happens.
I know, right?
So we're gonna keep skiing. We kind of got a funny day here at Stowe today. There was rain in the forecast, but it's holding off for now, and we got some nice, creamy, smooth snow. So we're gonna take advantage of that, and then we'll meet you back in the studio later this afternoon. And talk more about these skis, and I'm on my personal Enforcer 104s, so we can really speak to the differences between them, and it's exciting stuff.
Really interesting comparison too.
Yep, definitely. So we're gonna keep skiing, and we'll talk to you soon. Hey skiers, here we are back in the studio. Turned out to be a pretty fun day out there today.
Yeah, I mean, it was pouring rain when we were driving up the road, so it was nice to actually get some nice production and got some good shots and got to ski these things on some nice soft snow.
Yeah,
nothing wrong with that.
Ended up being great.
Yeah.
The clouds parted. It turned out to be, like you said in the snow report, it was like a spring day in December.
Right.
I almost want to go back up right now. It's like 50 degrees now.
Yeah.
Probably like super slushy and super fun, which would be great for these.
Yep.
So this is the Enforcer 104 Unlimited. I know you guys have been excited about this one. We've probably received more comments and requests for this review than at least anything in the past couple months. So we were excited to test it. We did the kind of Enforcer Unlimited line overview a few weeks ago. But as a refresher, Bob, do you want to give us just kind of a reminder of what's going on in these skis over here?
Sure. And, you know, we kind of went through it before, like you said. You know, they've taken the 2 sheets of metal out of the Enforcer 104 free. So that's the big difference. Another one is that they're using a macro block poplar wood core in this ski, whereas that has the performance wood core. It's denser wood with more vertical stringers. This has less stringers, and so in order to hold those stringers together, you need some type of adhesive, epoxy or glue or whatever it is, and that adds weight. So by having more of the ski just being that bare wood, just wood,
right.
it lightens the load, but it still keeps it pretty energetic. And we also have 2 sheets of carbon, or 2 applications of carbon. The bottom that runs along the base of the wood core, correct me if I'm wrong, GF 400, or is the 350 the denser?
No, there's like 530.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like 5 something. 400 something and 500 something.
Yeah, I was excited to learn about that. I obviously should brush up. But
this is where we should call Nordica in the video as a reminder. But yeah, 2 different densities of carbon.
Yeah.
And it's, if I'm remembering correctly and talking with Nordica, it is the most dense. Like they've never used that grade carbon before. So pretty cool.
So to mimic the metal, or at least the stability and dampness of the metal. They got that denser carbon on the base and then lighter carbon in the front. It's the same that's used in the Enforcer lineup.
Yep.
And then they also use their True Tip technology as well. So right about where the sidewall ends and goes right to tip here, they've removed that ABS sidewall material and just kept that light wood going to the very tip. So they've used that these past few years in the Enforcer. All the Enforcer skis really lightens the swing weight. You know, it doesn't really take material out, like really lighten the overall ski, but it certainly makes it quicker and more maneuverable.
Yep.
But that's pretty much it from a construction standpoint. You know, everything else is really kind of how it feels.
Yep.
You know, same shape, same footprint, which is, you know, a really impressive thing. So it just adds to that Enforcer line and the whole story, really.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing to mention and remind people is it's the exact same shape.
Yeah.
You know, we did the Elan Ripstick, the 104 review, and like that was a brand new ski.
Yeah.
It doesn't share a shape with anything, where they've taken an existing shape and a really good existing shape and just lightened it up a little bit.
Yeah.
So let's take a quick look at the weights before we kind of get into performance here. This is the normal 2022 Nordica Enforcer 104 free. We're at 2,125 grams. Sometimes these skin attachment tails don't love to stand up straight.
I got good balance today.
We got about 1,650 grams in that ski.
And these are 179s
Yep.
here.
So we're dropping a significant amount of weight. Pretty unbelievable.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things we did notice in terms of a difference when we had them kind of lining up on the wall here, this has a little bit thicker of a sidewall, so that macro block is just a little thicker.
Which makes sense.
Yep, makes sense. And then it also had a little bit more camber. I think it just might have been the optical illusion of
I think it was
it being
thicker. Yeah, it was sitting higher off the wall.
Yeah, but it was noticeable, you know,
Yeah.
just a slight difference. You know, obviously they're going to perform differently just because of the construction, but we like to look at these little things too.
The nitty gritty details.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for, Bob. So yeah, we put a Duke PT16 on that pair over there. Felt like it was a good binding for this ski, at least for testing, because we wanted to find its capabilities as an alpine ski. You know, I think like on the touring side of things, and we'll get more in depth on the touring side of things later in the video, but it's going to go uphill.
Yes.
It's light enough.
Yep.
You know, so I feel like the testing there is not like, maybe not as important or maybe not as telling, where spinning downhill laps on a lift, you can learn a lot about a ski.
Yeah, and I kind of included that in my write-up. I'm like, well, a lighter setup is going to tour better.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's hard to field questions of which one goes uphill better.
Right.
Like, the lighter one.
Right.
You know, this is on the wider side.
With
but like,
some small exceptions.
Yeah.
Like a ski with a flatter tail might be better.
Yeah. But overall,
marginal differences.
Yeah, if it's lighter, it's going to go uphill better. So
Right.
those are kind of, you know, a little, not really kind of what we're looking at in this ski.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think we can get right into performance.
Sure. Comfortable putting a Jester 16 on this.
Yeah.
Probably weighs a little bit more.
It weighs quite a bit. We can.
Yeah.
I think towards the end we can look at kind of some of the weights with that binding.
Yeah.
I brought my personal pair with a Pivot 18 up here, which is a funny comparison against the Duke PT. But speaking to performance, Bob, you were the first one to ski them.
Yep.
What do you think?
I was pretty impressed. You know, just was expecting less ski. You know, like that's just kind of the logic. Is you have a lighter ski, you're expecting less performance.
Right.
The first thing that jumped out at me was the energy and the ability to access the full side cut. So, you know, in this ski, what do we got? 18.5 right in the middle.
Yep.
You know, for a turn radius. And, you know, right away I could tell that it was easier to access this, get this thing across the hill versus the metal version. But, you know, you're still getting the energy and rebound out of it.
Yeah.
You know, I got to be honest, my back kind of hurts right now because of
You've been skiing so hard.
I've been skiing these so hard,
capabilities of those
and
skis.
yeah, the rebound and the energy out of these skis is really just
Yeah.
it's really impressive.
Yeah.
You know, and having to make those lateral movements from side to side to keep up with the energy of the ski has kind of made me walking a little gingerly today. So,
Which is certainly not a fault of the ski.
nope, that's my fault. You know, and that was really interesting to see. Was, you know, you have to, even when you're pushing this thing hard, you've got to work to keep up with it. So it has that higher end capability.
Yeah.
You know, we got it mostly on groom stuff.
We had a couple good off trail. I had
Yep.
that run down hayride on some pretty sweet snow, and then the
Yep.
gulch run too.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, we often start with groomers, and we
Yep.
kind of already have with kind of the accessing the side cut and the carving. So I think we can stick with that for a little bit. I think what you said is perfect. Like, it's easier to access the energy of the ski.
Yep.
We switched skis after the first day. I will say that the first day that you skied them, when I was just chasing you with a camera, I could tell how good they were.
Yeah.
I was like, I know how you ski. I know when you're comfortable, I know when you're not comfortable, and it was very obvious right away. Like, Bob's having a great time.
Yeah. And I like that. I like yours too.
Yep.
You know, it's just a different feel. And
Yep.
like for how I ski personally now, like this lines up better with what I do.
Sure.
You know, I'm a little bit slower than I used to be. I like skiing shorter turns, having that quicker edge to edge stuff.
Sure.
Like for a 104, this thing is super quick.
Yeah.
You
it
know,
is.
like
yeah.
that's quick too, but this is a different level.
It's different. I noticed the quickness a ton. I guess I'll contradict myself, and we'll go to off-piste performance. That's where I noticed it the most,
Yeah.
which makes sense because that ski is kind of more geared towards that side
Yeah.
of stuff. Something that I thought was really interesting is I think we both said this among our first testing days is like, oh, it's just a little easier to get it to bend and flex into a turn.
Yep.
Interestingly, it's stiffer.
Right.
So when putting this wall together, I was kind of like playing around. This is the metal 104, and a nice, relatively smooth flex pattern in there. This thing with the carbon and the thicker core, it kind of feels stiffer.
Yeah.
And I think like you were saying and how we were describing it, what at first felt like it was easier to get the ski to flex, I think is more just you get more energy out of it with less skier input.
Yeah.
So that's how I think of it. Yeah, super fun.
Yeah, and yesterday I went onto my personal pair of Enforcer 100s, just trying to get a little comparative sense.
One of our coworkers, Brad,
Yep.
had a run on these.
Yeah, Brad skied these yesterday and he loved them. You know, I think this is right up his alley.
Totally.
He has a 104 free and a regular Enforcer.
Yep.
So he was a good person to get on this. Definitely, he found the same things that we both felt like, wow, you can get this thing up on a high edge angle. It does not have, too much of a limit, and just a whole lot of fun. So.
Which is a perfect segue,
Yep.
Bob. Thank you for bringing that up. On hill this morning, and we kind of spoke about it in the intro to this video, the name is perfect.
Yep.
This ski is awesome. Like, continues to be awesome, but what was it, 2,100 something grams? You have some limitations there.
Yeah.
And the common question was, I want an Enforcer 104, can it tour? Like, it's like,
yes.
for most people, that's somewhat of a limitation for this ski. Like people like Brooks Kern, who are like young and really strong, like they were touring on it and doing just fine. But for the general public, maybe not the best. Or kind of another way to look at it, like, is it accessible for an intermediate? Maybe. Like,
yeah.
It feels like maybe a limitation.
No, we do get a lot of that. Like, I'm an intermediate moving to advanced skier. I'm looking at this 104 free.
Right.
And it's like, well, sure, but
Right.
it's heavy and it's pretty dense.
Right. So the unlimited name feels very appropriate.
Yeah. And what did you say? It was less limited than the 104
Thank
free.
you for bringing that up too, because that's where I wanted to go next. Nordica, I totally understand why you didn't call it this, because it doesn't have the same ring as unlimited. But I think like less limited.
Yeah.
Like any ski is going to have some limitations.
Sure.
So like unlimited is a bit of an exaggeration for anything that you're going to talk about in the skiing world. There's always going to be trade-offs.
Yep.
But yeah, I think it's less limited than this ski.
Yeah.
And I say less because you are losing some top-end stability.
Yeah.
I was reminded of that. I skied these today, and like first run, I was like, oh yeah, boy, these
Yeah.
are strong. But they're kind of tiring. They take like all of my 160 pounds and ski ability to like get them to really sing. Where these, you can ski them slower. You don't have to like ski quite as hard. So if there is a limitation of this ski, it's that top end stability over here. So if you're like, I was kind of thinking about where this would be superior, and maybe like, I think like level of aggressiveness and also skier size plays into this, but I now think of this as like somebody who like really loves to go just down the fall line, let them run, let the ski kind of skip over things. Like this thing just stays so quiet between the stability and vibration damping of two sheets of metal and the rocker profile. It just like skips over things. So if you like skiing 60 miles an hour in a straight line,
Better choice. Yep.
And that's like somewhat of an exaggeration too, but I think that's a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
Like if you are thinking about the limitations of that ski, there's less of them, but that top end is kind of where you get it.
Yeah, I felt it when I went back to my Enforcer 100s yesterday in this zone.
Yeah.
That my metal Enforcer was just more of a cohesive ski here
Sure.
for most of the time.
Yeah.
But that, I just feel like there were maybe one or two times, you know, like that steep first S turn of nosedive today. I mean, rock hard.
Right.
You know, it's
Firm.
gonna take either a vastly different skier or a vastly superior skier to
Sure.
carve a clean turn. Like there's no ski in that clean.
Right.
You know, and so these chattered, and I was like, well, there's that, but that was it.
Right.
You know, so less limited.
And that was like a very specific situation too.
Right. Yeah.
Which you don't encounter
No.
that often.
And even going faster, you know, that lower section of nosedive still pretty firm.
Yeah.
Was easier to get these things like I'm in a carve and then saying, whoop, I'm going too fast, and just
Flip 'em
it's easier
sideways.
to flip them sideways.
Yeah.
You know, so I was ending my turns just a little bit sooner, whereas that would say not so fast.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to hold you in here for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
So having this one be able to kind of read and react to my input
Yeah.
a little bit more efficiently and effectively, you know, just because I'm able to throw around a lighter ski a little bit easier.
Yeah.
So
And
I thought that was really cool.
And that's like, I think that's one of its biggest benefits for sure. And that's really going to come into play like tight East Coast trees,
Yep.
stuff like that. And that's what I was feeling on those few instances when we got to ski hayride and gulch and stuff like that. And like, it made me feel like a different skier,
Yeah.
kinda, because I felt like I was getting him to move around a little bit. I tried to ski like you and really, you know, keep my hands forward and let my lower body do all the work. And I really felt like I was skiing a little differently than I would on these. Where on these, like, I can do it, but it requires a lot more input to get that quickness out of them. Where on these, I'm more likely to kind of just like let them slarve for a while. Where those, I was like, tick, 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 and kind of getting those shorter, snappier turns.
So if you're touring, you're in the backcountry, you are most likely searching out for deep and fresh snow. The similar footprint in a lighter weight in fresh snow should float better.
In theory, yeah.
In theory, in fresh snow, all things being equal,
Yeah.
the lighter ski will float better.
Yeah, and I don't know, I mean, a good point to bring up, like we haven't had like a real powder day on them yet.
I wish we could dial them up, but we can't.
Yeah, just bring up the snow phone and say, hey, we'd like 14 inches tomorrow morning.
Yeah, and sunshine would be great too.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen.
No, but yeah, and I think we talked about that in our testing. Because it's the same shape, I have no worries about its powder performance whatsoever, because it's going to basically feel the same as this does, just a little lighter.
Yeah.
Which, like you said, you're going to get a little more float, a little easier to flick it around and play. I found they were like a lot of fun to ski switch on and like do little 180s and stuff like that, and I love doing that on this too. But if you're the type of skier that wants a ski like this and you want to do some tricks on it, this might be a better choice for you. At least an interesting decision.
Yeah.
Now, we talked about this before we started filming, and we mentioned that we would talk about it towards the end of this video. Is it a touring ski?
Right, and we talked about that with the new Elan Ripstick Tour that came out, which we both kind of agreed is a touring ski.
At least more of a touring.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think, especially since there's a lot lighter alpine skis, then it's like not even like this is a light, like
It's
the
on the
lightest
light
of
side.
it's on the light side, but it's not the lightest alpine ski we sell. Certainly not like in a 104. Maybe
It's got to be close.
it's close,
But yeah, I know what you're saying.
yeah,
Um,
like a touring specific ski
it's lighter.
is lighter.
Yeah, so I feel like the answer to that question, is it a touring ski, is both yes and no.
Right, it can be.
It can be depending on you.
Yeah.
Are there going to be people that just mount alpine bindings on those? 100% yes.
Yeah, and I hope so.
I do too.
I hope that a lot of people that are in that intermediate to advanced category that want a ski that is shaped like that, because we've talked about the Enforcer shapes and just how really nice they are.
Right.
They want that, but they don't want the weight, they don't want the metal.
Right.
Myself included. Like, I personally fit better in an alpine setting, like what we do here at Stowe, what I do with on my own time, with my family. Like, that's a better ski for me.
Yep.
You know, which is pretty interesting.
Right.
And you know, you don't like. There's no. We've said this in our touring. There's no wrong answer. There's no like. No, you can't do that on that ski.
Yeah.
But certainly, this has more alpine application than a lot of other, you know, skis that are in that kind of free touring market.
Right.
And you know, we kind of come up against the marketing people, not the people, but you know, we see it in the catalog, the message, You know, we see it in the catalog, we get the press on it and say, well, maybe there's something else there.
Yeah.
And I think this is a really good example of, you know, taking things that worked well in one ski and changing it, you know, for the betterment of more skiers.
Yep.
Which is a success, I think.
Yep. Now, binding choice.
Yeah.
I think there's a huge range you can go, which we kind of just mentioned. Like, you could go touring binding, you could go alpine binding. Specifically within the touring binding category, there's a ton of customization there too.
Yeah.
Like, you could go down to just a full lightweight tech binding.
Yep.
I think a ton of Nordica athletes will do that. I've already seen a couple pairs with like full-on tech bindings on them. But then if you wanted like a hybrid thing like that, perfectly reasonable.
Yeah.
And everything in between. Kingpin, shift. Feels like every binding option is appropriate for this ski.
Right, and that's an interesting point to bring up. Like, you can really put anything on this.
Yeah, and like, maybe this is an interesting time to do this. I didn't know if I wanted to do this at all, but when you throw a Duke PT 16 on this thing, it's like 3,200 grams.
Yeah.
My ski with a pivot 18
And metal.
and 2 sheets of metal is 3,500 grams.
Right.
So like, that binding's pretty darn heavy.
Yeah.
You know, you take the toe piece off and you lose a lot for sure. We're down to like 2,800 grams there, which is where the kind of touring efficiency comes from. But that's a pretty strong, burly setup right there. Like, you're not. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool the way that you can kind of custom tailor how you want it to work for you.
Well, I think the efficiency of the pins too, you know, that friction-free aspect to it makes a difference.
Yeah.
You know, you're not. I mean, and that's just a kind of a comment on AT stuff in general these days. Is even if it's heavy, it's still a lot better than it used to be, you know, than a frame binding or something where you're actively pulling something else up. So just having, you know, the ability to use that pin tech is huge.
I mean, I honestly would go as far as even saying, like, don't put a frame binding on them.
Yeah.
Because I think you're gonna lose some of what makes them special.
Yep.
You know, frame bindings can kind of give you a dead feeling underfoot sometimes, and these skis have as far from a dead feeling underfoot as you can possibly get.
No, you really want to use this whole curve.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where this ski really comes to life, is when it's, you know, 100% engaged, you know, either in a carved turn or you're just kind of putting your energy into it. And I
Right.
found that was one of the more fun things to do, even at short to medium radius turns.
Yep.
So I just had a blast playing around with the different turn shapes and styles of this ski, being
Yep.
able to do them all.
Right.
You know, whereas, like you said, you can do it, but it takes a lot more work.
Yeah.
And it's just a lot more difficult. So
Yeah, you know, like skiing these today. And I'll preface this by saying, like, I'm not giving these up.
Right.
I still love this. Like, I will always want a ski like this in my quiver because it has that, like, limitless top end potential.
Yeah.
But I think we were just coming down, like, the bottom pitch of, not the very bottom, but almost the bottom of North Slope today. And I was kind of letting them run, and all of a sudden I was, like, going a little faster than I
Right.
wanted to go. And it, like, was a reminder that, like, this thing will get going on you. But yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, and just a very interesting way that these companies are kind of, you know, breaching this subject and saying, we're making a new ski. Like, what is it? And I'm sure we're going to talk about this more with more upcoming 2023 skis that kind of are blending the, you know, resort and the backcountry.
Yeah, from what we've seen thus far, this is a conversation that we will be having more.
Yeah,
And I think that's exciting in general,
yeah,
because I think this is a really cool segment of skiing. I think it's a really cool direction to kind of take skis in general.
right.
And I think, I think Nordica did a great job.
Yeah, using what they have that was successful and making it fun. And
It's so light.
I know.
When you pick it up without the Duke PT on it, it's like, oh yeah, that thing's really light. And you pick it up with the Duke PT, and
No, and I like this, you know, I had never skied a Duke before this ski right here.
feel great, don't
And yep, just like clicking into an Alpine binding,
Yep.
which is pretty nice, you know.
they? Confidence inspiring.
Yeah, for me the bindings are all about confidence, and
Yep.
this one has it.
But
So
as strong of an Alpine touring binding as you could ever ask for.
yeah,
So that's it. Let us know if you have any questions about it. I'm sure there will be lots. We've had a lot of questions recently, so if we don't get back to you right away, forgive us. If you need a question answered like immediately, you can always call us. We have live chat on our website. There are ways to get a quicker response if it's something immediate. If it's more just a curiosity and you want an answer, leave a YouTube comment. You will get a reply.
yep.
It just might not be right away. So that's it. Great job, Nordica. Keep making good skis, and we'll see you guys out there on the slopes.
Bye.